how to stand up for yourself without being aggressive. Have you ever walked away from a conversation, replaying it over and over in your mind, thinking I should have said something, but you didn't? Maybe it was your neighbor talking over you, or a family member dismissing your opinion with a half-hearted smile. And you stayed quiet, not because you didn't care, but because you didn't want to cause tension. You're not alone. At this stage in life, many of us were raised to keep the peace, to avoid conflict, to be the one who lets things slide. We were taught that speaking up might come off as rude, or worse, aggressive. But here's the truth, standing up for yourself doesn't mean you have to shout, argue, or become someone you're not. In fact, you can speak your truth with calm, with clarity, and still keep your dignity intact. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today, how to stand up for yourself without being aggressive. Because your voice matters. Your feelings matter. And you deserve to be heard without having to raise your voice or harden your heart. Let's start by shifting the way we look at standing up for ourselves. It's not about dominating others. It's about honoring your own needs. Think of it like this, you're not building a wall, you're drawing a boundary. There's a big difference. A wall shuts people out. A boundary says, this is where I stand, and I'd like you to respect that. The first step is getting clear on what you actually want in a situation. You'd be surprised how many of us suppress our needs for so long that when the moment comes, we freeze. So before you speak, take a breath and ask yourself, what am I really trying to say? Maybe it's, I need more quiet in the house. Or please don't make decisions for me without asking. When you're clear on your own message, it becomes easier to say it without guilt or apology. Now, here's where it gets powerful, tone of voice. You don't need to sound tough or loud to be heard. In fact, calm is often more commanding than volume. Think about those people you've met who don't shout, but somehow, when they speak, everyone listens. That's the kind of presence you want to cultivate. And it starts with confidence in your message. Stand tall, speak evenly, and look the person in the eye, not with defiance, but with calm assurance. Let me share a quick story. A woman I met recently, her name's Margaret, told me about a time her daughter-in-law kept making plans for the whole family without asking her. Margaret didn't want to rock the boat, so she went along with it, until one day, she simply said, I'd love to be part of the conversation before decisions are made. That's it. No anger, no blame, just truth. And you know what? Her daughter-in-law respected that. She hadn't realized how Margaret felt until she spoke up. It's moments like that, simple but strong, that build respect. Not just from others, but from within yourself. Because every time you honor your own voice, you're sending a message, I matter, too. Sometimes, it's not just what we say, but what we don't allow. That's the second point I want to share with you. Silence isn't always golden. There's a difference between staying quiet to keep peace, and staying quiet because you feel powerless. If someone repeatedly talks over you, belittles your opinions, or dismisses your needs, it's okay to interrupt. It's okay to say, I'm not finished yet, or I'd like to share my perspective, too. These phrases don't attack. They simply invite balance. And if you're met with resistance, stay grounded. Don't match their tone. Don't let their frustration become yours. The more calmly you respond, the more they'll have to stop and listen. You can be firm without being harsh. You can be honest without being cruel. You don't have to explain every detail of why you feel the way you do. Sometimes just saying, that doesn't sit right with me, or that's not something I'm comfortable with, is enough. People might not always agree, but they'll know where you stand. And that clarity? That's where respect begins. Now, if you've gone a long time being the peacemaker, this might feel unnatural at first. But remember, this is not about changing who you are. It's about reclaiming your place in the conversation. It's about reminding yourself and others that your time, your energy, and your voice are valuable. As we continue, we'll talk more about how to handle those especially tricky situations, like when someone uses guilt to silence you, or when your boundaries get pushed even after you speak up. Let's talk about those moments when people don't take no for an answer. You've probably been there. You say, I can't commit to that right now, and they respond with, but it's just a small thing, or worse, come on, don't be difficult. Suddenly, you feel like the bad guy just for saying how you feel. This is where the next layer of strength comes in, holding your boundary even when it makes others uncomfortable. Because here's the hard truth, people who benefit from your silence or flexibility are the ones most likely to resist your boundaries. But that doesn't mean your boundary is wrong. It means it's working. One woman I spoke to recently, her name's Joyce, told me how her grown son would always drop off his kids at the last minute, assuming she'd be available to babysit. And for years, she did it, even when it disrupted her plans or drained her energy. But then one day, she calmly said, I love spending time with them, but I need notice. My time matters, too. At first, he was surprised. A little defensive. But over time, he adapted. Because when you start showing people how to treat you, they eventually follow. Now, there's a trick to keeping this balance. Don't explain too much. The more you over-explain, the more room you leave for people to push back. You don't need to justify needing rest. You don't need to give 5 reasons why something doesn't work for you. Sometimes a gentle but firm, that won't work for me, is more than enough. Clear. Kind. And final. There's another tactic that often helps, the broken record technique. It means calmly repeating your stance without getting dragged into debate. If someone keeps pressing, you simply say, I understand, but I'm not able to do that, again and again, like a calm, steady drum. It sends the message that you're not open to persuasion, but you're also not trying to fight. You're simply standing your ground with grace. Of course, not every situation is black and white. There are moments when emotions run high, when a loved one is upset, or when someone tries to guilt trip you. And that brings us to something very important. You can stand up for yourself and still lead with compassion. Let's say someone accuses you of being selfish because you said no. That can sting. But instead of snapping back, you might say, I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm doing what I need to take care of myself right now. That one sentence holds firm while still acknowledging their feelings. You're not backing down, but you're not building walls either. You're showing strength without coldness. And that's powerful. I want to pause for a second and say this. If you've spent most of your life putting others first, learning to advocate for yourself might feel strange, even wrong at first. But I promise you, it's not selfish. It's self-respect. And the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. It can even feel empowering, liberating, really, to realize you don't have to carry everyone else's comfort on your shoulders. You don't have to shrink yourself to make others more comfortable. You can speak plainly, kindly, and directly. And that's what I want you to remember. Direct doesn't mean rude. Honest doesn't mean harsh. You can be soft-spoken and still be strong. You can be polite and still be firm. You can love others deeply and still say, this is not okay with me. There's an art to standing up for yourself, especially as we get older. And that art is not about confrontation. It's about connection. When we stand tall in our truth, we invite others to meet us there. And the relationships that truly matter, the ones built on respect, will rise to meet you. Now, some of you might be thinking, what if I freeze in the moment? That's okay. It happens to all of us. But every time you try, even if your voice shakes, you're building the muscle. And just like any muscle, it grows with use. So even if you walk away from a conversation thinking, I wish I had said something, don't beat yourself up. Use that moment. Think about what you would say next time. Practice it in your mind. Write it down if it helps. The goal isn't to be perfect, it's to be prepared. And every step you take brings you closer to the confidence you deserve. Let's take a moment to breathe together. Because if this message has stirred something in you, an old memory, a recent frustration, or even a quiet resolve, you're already doing the work. You're already moving toward a stronger version of yourself. And that matters. Now, let's talk about something that catches a lot of us off guard, when people we love the most are the ones who test our boundaries the hardest. Maybe it's a partner who brushes off your concerns. Or a sibling who always assumes you'll go along with their plans. Maybe it's your adult children, thinking they know better, making decisions for you instead of with you. In those moments, it's tempting to let it slide, again. To tell yourself, it's not worth the drama. But here's something I've learned, and maybe you have too: the more we avoid the discomfort now, the more resentment builds over time. And that resentment has a quiet way of draining our joy, our energy, and even our connection with the people we love. So, what can we do instead? We speak up, with love and clarity. Let's say your daughter keeps assuming you'll help with the grandkids every weekend, but you're feeling exhausted. Instead of snapping or withdrawing, you could say, "I love spending time with them, but I also need time to rest and do things I enjoy. Can we come up with a schedule that works for both of us?" You're not pushing her away. You're pulling honesty into the relationship, and that's a gift. Sometimes the fear isn't about what others will say. It's about how we'll feel afterward. Guilty. Mean. Selfish. Especially for those of us who were raised in homes where keeping quiet was a sign of being good. But let me say this clearly, in case no one has told you before: you are allowed to change. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to say no. And still be kind. And still be loved. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be a battle. Sometimes, standing up for yourself sounds like, "That doesn't work for me," or "I'd like to be asked first," or even just "No, thank you." Those small words carry weight. They don't need fire behind them, they just need your truth. And when you do speak your truth, something beautiful begins to happen. People start to see you differently. Not as someone they can walk over, but someone they need to walk with. You become not just a presence in the room, but a voice in the conversation. And that shift? It changes everything. Now, let's not pretend that standing up for yourself will always be easy. It won't. Sometimes you'll feel shaky. Sometimes people won't respond the way you hoped. But what matters most isn't their reaction, it's that you stayed true to yourself. And that kind of honesty builds something far more lasting than just momentary peace. It builds self-respect. And here's what I want to leave you with: self-respect is not earned by being loud. It's earned by being consistent. By showing up for yourself, again and again, even when it's hard. By saying, through your words and actions, "I matter." And you do. You matter. Your feelings, your boundaries, your needs, they all matter. You don't have to shout to be heard. You don't have to argue to be understood. You can lead with grace. You can speak with kindness. You can honor yourself while still honoring others. So the next time you feel that old hesitation rise up, the fear of being too much, too firm, too direct, pause. Breathe. And remember, strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it's a calm voice saying, "This is who I am, and this is what I need." And that, my friend, is more than enough. If this message spoke to you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you had moments where you stood up for yourself, and how did it feel? Or maybe you're still working on it, and that's okay too. Let's talk about it in the comments. We grow stronger together. And if this kind of content helps you feel more seen, more empowered, more at peace, go ahead and click that like button and subscribe to the channel. We're building a space where your voice matters at any age. Here's to honoring your truth, setting kind boundaries, and living each day with the dignity you've always deserved. No more shrinking. No more silence. This is your time.